Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome on in. ESPN 1410 Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm your host, and Jacob's your host, and Casey's your host.
No.
We're together. We are. If we put our three minds together, we are the super hosts.
You're Miss Frizzle. You're driving this bus.
We'll drive the bus, but we're all the hosts. Sometimes, there's some when you're driving, when you're learning to drive, the passenger guy, he's got his own set of steering wheels too.
Right.
So that's what this is.
There was a bus driver at my middle school that got fired because she drove the bus through the cafeteria twice.
Really?
Yeah,
Twice.
Straight through over the sidewalk, right through the wall, twice.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like that should be a one and done type of situation.
Once you do it once, that's it.
Should be.
That's it.
Should be. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a good day today.
Pouring rain at my house this morning. Get over here, and it's sunny.
Sunny over here in Hamilton, Ohio. I think that I didn't believe the sun would come out today after what happened yesterday. We streamed all day. We did the little 6-hour live stream, 7-hour live stream, whatever it was, and we did the opening day show and the off the bench show, and I felt good and I felt proud. I actually felt
hours, so that was awesome.
Yeah, maybe 6:30. Yeah, maybe all the way up until the last second. But I felt good, I felt actually pretty damn good about where the Reds were. And I was confident. I started betting money. I started doubling down.
Oh, yeah.
And watching the game, and we'll get to it, but watching the game, I felt great. I felt like this is a new team. I mean, we're going to do this thing. It was an utter domination. And then the end happens. So we'll get into it, but one of the worst opening days I can remember. I mean, it's just, there's so many brutal ways to lose a baseball game. What happened yesterday in the 9th inning, one of the worst ways, truly, I've ever experienced. But Casey, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I do think it's time to declare Bengals season.
Woo-hoo! Yes.
That's why I'm wearing all my Bengals
There we
gear.
go.
At least
like
that's what you would think with the reaction to yesterday's loss. I'm not going to go that far and say that the season's done or that Tito is the wrong choice or anything like that. That's just crazy. I don't think anyone here thinks that either. But there's certainly some fans out there that were very emotional yesterday. And it's tough, man. That was a tough way to lose the game yesterday. I certainly was disappointed. And we'll talk about it. I'll give my thoughts on it a little bit too. But I was just hoping a little bit more from a couple of different guys. Was disappointed. Was happy to see a couple other guys do really well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be hopeful for in the future, though. I think we'll be okay, like you said.
I feel vindicated for my take yesterday that it's the most important single game for fan vibes. I don't know if that was necessarily even a hot take, but if a game like that happens a month from now, it's not nearly the fallout that you saw yesterday. I mean, obviously 162 games, one loss, can't kill you, but when you have a packed house for one of 10, maybe 15 times this year, and it ends like that when vibes are as high as they always are in Cincinnati on opening day, it's just a kick to the teeth to start the season that way.
It's brutal. It's brutal. And again, we'll get into that next segment. But for this segment, we do have some other sports to talk about.
Oh.
And with that, Casey, I believe it's time for headlines.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
If I would have remembered the whistle, there is maybe no more of a whistle day than today.
Today would have been the loudest whistle.
I forgot
Today would have been the loudest whistle of all time. All right, Mr. Mo, by the way, in the chat says definitely not worse than the Bengals loss to the Patriots.
Probably fair.
That's actually fair. That's actually a fair point.
Bottom 2 opening day losses in Cincinnati history came this year.
Yeah, both.
Maybe.
Wow, that's spectacular, actually. NBA. We'll start with the NBA. Why not? The Kings, they win by 21 over the Trailblazers. The Rockets, they win 121-110 over the Jazz. The Lakers, I don't know if you guys saw this last night. The Lakers hit a game. Was it Austin Reeves? I don't know which one. I don't know which one of their guys was the one who hit the game-tying shot with like 3 seconds left on the clock, or maybe it was the go-ahead shot. I think.
Yeah, it was to take the lead.
To take the lead, Josh Giddey with 3 seconds on the clock marches down, hits a half-court buzzer beater to give the Bulls a win, 119-117 over the Lake Show.
It was
brutal.
In the middle of that stretch. I think it was probably the worst 6 to 8 seconds of LeBron's career. He was guarding the inbound when they had the original lead, lost his man in the corner. They made a three. He turned it over on the ensuing inbound. They made another three. And then he lost Josh Giddey on the inbound. So it was about 8 seconds of lowlights of LeBron's career, and you don't get a lot of those.
No.
So it was terrible to see.
What do you think is going to be a worse loss? Stephen A. beating him in a boxing match, or that loss last night?
I don't think there's. Thinking about it now, there's not many things I want more than that fight.
I want it so bad.
So bad.
I want it so bad. Also, I don't know if we even really talked about it. LeBron doing an hour and just roasting everybody on the Pat McAfee show, very, very funny. That's a funny bit. I wish he would have done that more in his career.
His post-career, whether it's documentary or interview circuit or whatever it is, it's gonna be next level if he's willing to drop those kind of bombs while he's still playing.
How much do you think he loves the LeBron songs on TikTok? He has to. He has to love them.
There's a non-zero chance he started it.
Yeah, I think he might have. The Thunder last night, they blew out the Grizzlies 125-104. The Heat, they win by 10, 122-112. The Cavaliers, they get win 59, 124-116 over the San Antonio Spurs. Jarrett Allen scored 29, 15 boards. Donovan Mitchell, 25 points with 14 assists. The Mavericks. How about the Mavericks? They get a 9-point road win over the Magic last night, 101-92. Anthony Davis, 15 points in 28 minutes played. Good for him. The Pacers. This is fun. The Pacers scored a franchise record, 162 points in their nearly 60-point victory over the Wizards. 162-109. 162-109.
Yeah, the Pacers, they're going on about year 4 or 5 now of this system of we're going to hope we score 170 a game.
Oh, yeah.
And the really fun part about the Pacers is that they do kind of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's working for them. They made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But, yeah, no, they have breakneck pace. They're a pretty fun team to watch.
Very, very fun. Again, 9 of their players in that game scored in double figures. 14 players scored points. And their 162-point win over the Washington Wizards. Heading over to college basketball last night. We'll start with Jacob.
Let's go.
Alabama won 113-88 over BYU last night. I was texting Jacob. They scored 100 points with 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, they sure did.
With 8 minutes to go in that game, they
You
scored
told me
100.
over 90 was a bad bet.
I did tell you that. Sears was 10 for 16 from beyond the arc, 8 assists as well. They shot 25 for 51 from 3. They shot 25 of 51 from 3. Now, I want to give you a little bit, before I continue with this, I wanted to give you a little bit of a stat. Because I
got some stats as well.
I saw it from my good friend Zach sent it to me. If I can find it. Alabama had 22 threes with 7 minutes left.
Yes.
In that Sweet 16 game. The Bearcats hit exactly 22 threes in the 120 minutes over their final 3 games versus Iowa State and Oklahoma State twice. Again, Alabama finished with 25. That's 3 more than UC scored in their final 3 games of the season.
That's a fun stat.
Rolling on with that, it's the most threes ever. It's the most threes ever in a tournament game. And I believe, Jacob, it's the most points scored in a Sweet 16 game?
Since the Sweet 16 was named.
Okay.
So a little bit of an asterisk on that stat, but yes, it is the most points scored. Second most points a team has ever scored in regulation in the second weekend or later. Most points scored since the Sweet 16 was named.
I mean, that's let me ask you this. As somebody who watches a team that doesn't score points, what's it like to have a team that legitimately doesn't miss shots? I was watching the game with a couple of friends last night. We started laughing out loud. Any shot they took was in. Every shot.
And they were getting phenomenal looks. Wide open.
Wide open. I don't know what was going on with, I thought the technical was kind of weak. But
they make up their own rules. We're just forcing them. I mean, if they aren't allowed to cuss and they cuss, we're going to give them a T.
I do like that. But again, an absolutely dominating victory for Alabama. We'll talk more about college basketball later on in the show. But my God, Absolutely insane.
Nate Oates joined Alabama as the head coach in 2019. He is now the all-time NCAA tournament wins leader in the history of the program. He's also reached back-to-back Elite Eights. Alabama had reached one Elite Eight in their program history prior to him taking over.
Really? Nate Oates is really, really good at basketball.
Unbelievable.
Really, really
Unbelievable coach.
Maryland, unable to overcome the rumor of the loss of their coach. 87-71, the final. Casey, I sent this clip to you, the most recent one. Willard, again, there's been rumors about this guy leaving for a while now. He was booed. He was booed yesterday heading to the game. Their send away was booed. But this was him in the post game about, he was focused on Maryland.
So I have not even. No, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll just be honest with you. I haven't talked to my agent. I haven't talked to my wife. I made a promise to this team that I was gonna just focus on this team, and that's all I've done. So I haven't talked to anybody. It's right now my biggest concerns in life right now. I don't know who my boss is going to be. It's the guy that brought me here, who I really liked and appreciative of him bringing me to College Park, is not here anymore. And I don't know who we're going to hire. And that's, as in today's day and age, that worries me a little bit, I'm just being honest. My honesty got me in trouble. I might as well keep getting me in trouble. So this is going to be a family decision. I love College Park. I love Maryland, but when you're at this point in your career and you're looking at things, I have to take everything into consideration about what's moving forward. But I have not even talked to anybody, so I don't know what I'm doing.
That's clearly a guy who was locked into a Sweet 16 matchup against Florida last night.
Yeah, no, it's a tough situation all around because honestly, should Kevin Willard be talking out about NIL discrepancies and the future of his contract and everything while his team's making a run that they haven't made in 25 years? Probably not. Probably not the time nor the place. He's also not lying. He's one of the top coaches potentially on the market. Maryland doesn't have an athletic director, and they're drastically behind in competitive NIL spending. At some point, you have to, argue for yourself and argue for your program. And if he does have any intention of coming back to Maryland, maybe the best place to do that is on the biggest stage. So I think my main takeaway from the whole Kevin Willard debacle through all of this tournament so far is if it comes out that some of these reports that he might have accepted the Villanova job during the Big Ten tournament, if it comes out that that's true, then I don't know. I mean, this goes back to a conversation we've had time and time again. I don't know if that's a guy I want leading my program. If he's going to go into this tournament, with the team in Maryland that absolutely had a chance at this run. This wasn't some, plucky Cinderella story. They were a 4 seed. They were a dominant force in the Big Ten with some of the best freshmen in the entire country, especially Derek Queen, who's probably going to be a lottery pick. So, I mean, this certainly isn't the way to handle it if you are going to handle it this way. Now, I will say, if his intention was to come back to Maryland, and that was spurned by the AD going to SMU, and that changes things and slows down the process, and then he takes a job elsewhere, I don't know how much I blame him, and that seems like a massive minority take, but I feel like that's where I'm at with the whole thing right now.
Yeah, I listen. I don't fault him. I've always had an issue with coaches having these decisions, making these announcements this early.
Yeah,
I don't know how. A lot of it I'm sure is leaked and stuff you don't want out. This situation's a little bit different because I do think he was a little bit too outspoken regarding some of this, and that like he said in the press conference, that got him in trouble. Everybody should just. I know the contracts are done. I know that. I'm sure Sean Miller had that contract. I'm sure that was signed a month in advance. I'm sure the guy from West Virginia, I forget his name right now. I'm sure that deal was done a year ago. But we just gotta wait until the very end. Nothing upset me more in the history of my UC football fandom than when Brian Kelly decided he was just gonna quit before the Sugar Bowl. I hated it.
At least he didn't coach the Sugar Bowl for
correct. Maybe
game.
That's a fair point. Some coaches leave during the middle of the season and then they coach the new team during their bowl game the same year.
Haven't seen it before. Haven't seen it since.
Is that right?
Not that I can remember.
Shout out to my guy Luke. Extension. Okay, continuing on here with college basketball. Duke, they hung on to beat Arizona 193. Caleb Love had 35 points in the loss. Cooper Flagg, 30 points. Kneppel had 20. It was, again, we'll talk about it a little bit later on. It felt like it was a complete and utter blowout. I would say a majority of it. Arizona kept trying to push back in, but Duke's just too good, man. I mean, Duke's just too good. The 6-0 run they had right before halftime was the dagger, the buzzer beater 3. It's just, it was too much to overcome for Arizona. They fought valiantly. They fought about as well as you could possibly fight against Duke in a loss. And then we have obviously the final one last night, Texas Tech forcing overtime. They win 83 with 4 minutes and 44 seconds to go. Arkansas led 69-56. From that point until the end of the game, till the end of regulation, Tech went on a 16-3 run, including the game-tying 3 by Darion Williams with 10 seconds to go.
Wow.
Christian Anderson, Darion Williams, JT Toppin all had 20 points in a winning effort. Coach Cal has been bounced from the tournament. I've never understood not fouling up 3. No. Ever. I've never understood it. I'll never understand it. Whatever logic a coach. I don't care if he's a Hall of Fame coach. I don't care if he's got 25 national championships. I don't fathom. I can't possibly fathom not fouling when you're up by 3 and under 10 seconds to go. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And maybe they were going to if the clock went down a little bit more. Yeah. But it's just, you just got to do it, man. When we're under 20 seconds, you just got to start fouling.
Can Cal turn his timeouts in for money?
Maybe.
Why does he keep them all at the end of games?
I don't know. He just likes to see it play
maybe tell
out.
DJ Wagner, hey, buddy, you're not Kyrie Irving. Pass the ball to one of your 4 open teammates in the last possession.
Yeah,
I don't understand what was going on at the end of regulation and then again at the end of overtime. I thought both were questionable at best by Cal. And the funniest stat was at halftime when Arkansas took the lead. I know that was one of the biggest public plays yesterday. And Cal at halftime with the lead, 6-point lead at halftime. They were up more. I think they were up 11 at the time. But 6-point lead at halftime for Cal in the NCAA tournament. He was undefeated with over 20 wins in the NCAA tournament when leading by 6 at halftime. That's the first time he's ever lost with a 6-point halftime lead.
They led by 16 in that game, man. I mean, it was domination until the end. It was just a blown game. Those things happen, as we know very well here in Reds country. We're going to take a break. I've got some MLB scores for you when we come back, and obviously we're going to discuss the absolute garbage display from our closer yesterday.
Your guy.
ESPN, it is my guy, unfortunately. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports. We have Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett in here today. We'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Welcome on in, ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Continuing on our headlines, the 2-segment headliners. We'll start down here, the Mariners. The Mariners, they scored 3 in the 8th to come back against the Athletics last night. They get a win. The Cubs, they scored 10 in their win over the Diamondbacks, their first win on the season, 10-6. Eugenio Suarez hit a home run in that game. Shohei Ohtani, he hit another home run, this time against the Tigers. Dodgers win 5-4.
You have any help on that one, or was it legit?
I think that one was legit.
Okay.
I think that one was legit.
I'll probably ask every time.
That's fair. 5-4, the Dodgers beat the Tigers on Skubal Day. The Cardinals, they win 5-3 over the Twins. The Guardians, they were able to win after Bybee was scratched, their starter, Bybee, scratched due to food poisoning. Blake Lively stepped up. He got the start and got the win.
Interesting nugget about that. It came out last year that he eats Chipotle before every start.
Who, Lively? Bybee.
The food poisoning scratch.
Really?
So when that came out this year, the thought was, well, maybe the Chipotle was bad.
That's a problem. You can't do that. That's one thing you can't do. 7-4, they beat the Royals, the Guardians, so good for them. The Mets, they were unable to score last night against their Astros. They did score 1, but 3-1 they lose to Houston. The Braves, they lost to the Padres 7-4. The Marlins, this was kind of a big one for the Reds. The Marlins walk off the Pirates after trailing 4-1, 5-4, the final score there. The Brewers, they lose to the Yankees 4-2, and this is an interesting nugget. The catcher of the Yankees, Austin Wells, was leading off in that game.
Yeah.
Leading off. It is the first leadoff opening day home run in MLB history by a catcher.
Wow.
In the long league of Major League Baseball, no catcher has ever hit a leadoff home run on opening day. So good for Austin Wells.
I believe he led off a few games in the playoffs last year.
Really?
I believe so.
It's always kind of weird to see.
Very. He's a great bat, though.
Yeah, he is. The Orioles. This is the final one. The Orioles, they crushed the Blue Jays 12-2. Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah, that's on me. Left hand up.
Tyler O'Neill, 6 consecutive opening day home runs. 6 consecutive opening day home runs. I don't know what kind of streak that is. That is absolutely ridiculous.
Unbelievable. Not to mention
ridiculous.
he went 3 for 3 yesterday. So every time he went up.
And
He's just an opening day machine.
And is this his third team right during that stretch?
At least, yeah.
I mean, that's oh my God. Cardinal, he was a Red Sox, right?
Yes.
It was Cardinals, Red Sox, and Orioles.
Orioles.
I don't know if there was another one in there that I'm
6
forgetting.
home runs overall for the Orioles.
That's wild.
2 for Adley Rutschman.
Adley Rutschman, GOAT.
And 2 for Cedric Mullins in the contract year.
There we go. And finally, the Giants. They beat the Reds 6-4. CES, Friedel, Candelario all have 3 hits. Candy has 3 RBIs. Hunter Green tossed 5 innings, 3-hit, 2-run baseball, struck out 8. Barlow, Scott Barlow came in, pitched well, struck out 2, didn't allow a base runner. Emilio Pagan struck out 2, didn't allow a base runner. Tony Santillan struck out 2, didn't allow a base runner.
Wow, this game's awesome.
And then, in the 9th inning, we were live streaming the game, and we all collectively gasped in the studio.
Yeah.
Because in the top of the 9th inning, Ian Gibaut walks in. 3 hits, 4 earned runs, a walk, and a blown save. Absolutely ridiculous. Here's what I'll say. It's game 1. It's a 162-game season. We very may well not look at this game in the large scheme of things down the stretch. We might not. The biggest game of the year every year until the clinching game of the playoffs or the division is opening day. How is it in this situation did our manager, Terry Francona, roll with Ian Gibaut? I know the bit. I do the bit. I love the bit. I think the bit's funny.
Bit's a lot less funny when he's a terrible closer.
The bit is not funny when he's the closer of the team. The bit works when he's throwing 3 innings and a blowout in like the 5th inning. Like that's like 5th, 6th, 7th. Like that's all fine. The decision to put Ian Gibaut in, and this is, I know it's going to come off as, I know I'm an exaggerative person. I exaggerate a lot. I go into dramatics a lot. It was one of the worst managerial decisions I've seen by a Cincinnati Reds manager ever. Everybody in the ballpark, everybody here in the studio, everybody in the outskirts of Cincinnati, everybody listening to 700 WLW, everybody knew that Ian Gibaut is not a closer. How is that message not communicated to the manager of the team? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know more than Terry Francona. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know more than anybody. I'm a stupid person. But that decision yesterday, was one of the most baffling decisions ever. There are so many better options. He was a non-roster invitee. This isn't like some guy who's had a long history of success in Major League Baseball. This is Ian Gibaut. We're talking about Ian Gibaut. And that's the decision. That's the call. I just listed those 3 relievers. 2 strikeouts for each of them, not a base runner in those 3 innings with those 3 pitchers. There was no thought of maybe carrying it over.
Ashcraft's just keeping the bench warm.
We have Graham Ashcraft, a guy who's started a lot of games for this team, who has a lot of dirty stuff, I would say. If you had to go like stuff meter, he's got some good stuff.
Bulldog.
And we're going to go with Ian Gibaut?
Well, also, too, I mean, Kirby was flabbergasted because it was a left-right-left or a right-left,
Left.
Yeah, it was. And we're throwing out Gibaut instead of someone else. Like, it just didn't make any sense from a logical perspective and what works with his strengths. I mean, it just didn't make sense at all, top to bottom.
It's baffling. And I understand we had the show on yesterday, we had the show yesterday. And Craig and Nick, they were kind of hesitant about throwing, Taylor Rogers out there. Yeah. Taylor Rogers has a history of saving games.
I think the issue with that is what Casey was bringing up there with the left, right, left. And if you are hunting splits, then he's not necessarily an option there.
And that's fine. If you're going to do the split thing, that's fine.
But then
why would
Gibaut can't be your option?
Then why would Tony Santillan face two lefties the inning prior?
Correct. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like if that's the reasoning, why be so inconsistent with it? It doesn't make any sense. There are better options in our bullpen. I don't care. Literally everybody. There are guys in Major League Baseball, and there's no shame in it, that come in when it's a blowout and they eat innings. They're the inning eaters. And I have no problem with that. They have roles on teams. You're not going to win every game. You're not going to be competitive every single night. Some nights you get your teeth kicked in. And you need somebody to go in there and save the bullpen in the starting rotation. That's Ian Gibaut. Ian Gibaut's a guy that is supposed to eat innings in a blowout, win or loss.
Yeah.
That's his thing. If any save he gets should be the 3-inning BS save that somehow Major League Baseball still keeps. There are positives from the game, and we're going to get into that, but I wanted to start with the Ian Gibaut thing because I don't get it. I don't get it.
I just don't know how that could be the choice.
We have a troll in the chat. Which option was better? I'm not kidding anybody. Luke Maley, the catcher from last year, is a better option than Ian Gibaut.
I think the biggest issue is the way they used him. In what world are the three pitchers that pitched before Ian Gibaut not built for higher leverage situations?
Yeah.
I don't see a world where Emilio Pagan, who's the highest paid reliever in that bullpen, as long as Nick Martinez is considered a starter, and then Tony Santillan, who many of us, including Nick Kirby and Trace on the stream yesterday, penciled in as who we thought was going to be that closer role, and you just don't use them. Obviously, we used them earlier in the game, and they lived up to expectations. And then you save Gibaut for the 9th inning, and what I think we all characterize as one of the most important single games of the season without knowing how everything unfolds so far. You have to give everything you have to win that game. You have to empty the tank in front of 3,000 fans or whatever it was. I know this game doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Everyone's saying it's 162. Why are we freaking out over this one? We're freaking out over this one because we were told all offseason that there were going to be major changes to how this team plays and what we were want to watch this season. And we're one game in and we're watching the same Reds. We're watching base running mistakes. We're watching questionable pitching moves. We're watching starters get pulled before we think they should. We're watching the same things and sitting here scratching our heads on opening day as it felt like we've watched for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that's where most of this frustration comes from, is if the Reds would have lost yesterday to the Giants, I don't think anyone's pulling their hair out. It's the way they lost. It's the fact that we're one game into the Terry Francona era and we're asking questions about his managerial decisions. This is as close to a nightmare scenario for opening day as you could possibly get in terms of the way we lost. Obviously, you can get down the line to, a blowout and guys don't play well. Obviously, there's silver linings to this performance that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Some of the guys that we expect to carry this team played great yesterday. And I think that's part of why it hurts so bad too, is because there's so many highlights in that game that you'd be able to hold on to maybe all year long.
Yeah.
I mean, winning that game with the start Hunter Green gave you would be a highlight of the season. Not just because it's opening day, but because that's an unbelievable performance. And now we basically lose all of those just because you lost the game. It's very frustrating to watch. And, you win the next 2 games, you win the series, everyone will be back in. That's how baseball works. The sky is falling every single time you lose, and then, the sun is as bright as it's ever been, and the birds are chirping every game you win. So that's the beauty of a 162-game season, and it's frustrating. And I don't think I'll freak out more about a single game than I will about opening day all year long, probably.
Yeah.
But it's the worst way possible we could have lost that game.
Casey, I have some audio from it, and this was Ian Gibaut. I wanted to start with Ian Gibaut after the game. I don't mean to pick on the guy. I do the bit that, he's the great godson of England. And I think that everybody who goes through a situation like that in professional sports, they're going to feel terrible. And I don't mean to be mean. But it's opening day, and I expect a game that's absolutely dominated by the Cincinnati Reds, like Jacob said. Yeah. Dominated. The Reds dominated 99% of that game. And to lose it like that, it's just unacceptable. We're going to take a quick break. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench. When we come back, we're going to have audio from Terry Francona and Ian Gibaut as to what happened. And talk about the positives, too. I know I'm a negative person. You all know that. You know I complain, and I moan, and I'm aggravating. I get it. So we're going to talk about the positives, too. But I have to first talk about the negatives. I just have to in a game like that when you lose opening day in heartbreaking fashion. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Off the Bench, Chatterbox Sports. Welcome on in. ESPN 1410 Wing AM. Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, Casey McAllister here on Off the Bench on this beautiful Friday morning. It's days like this where I am a little bit thankful there's no game.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a mixed bag. I want there to be a game to avenge last night's loss. But taking a breath, because I couldn't do another back-to-back heartbreaking loss again tonight. I couldn't do it.
No, not one bit.
Ian Gibaut, after the game last night, was interviewed, and here's the video.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of how you always think, and then innings not over till the third one, so the first two don't matter unless you get the third. So
I think when they took the lead, you were at like 13 strikes, 10 balls. Was the command just not where it usually is with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that. Felt like I was going after him pretty good. Yeah, I mean, felt good out there, honestly.
You've taken the ball in a lot of different situations since you've been here. How much do you like the opportunity to be able to try to close and obviously next time have a different outcome, certainly? But
sure.
Like, what do you like about that situation, though, just to be that guy?
I mean, that's why you play the game. You want to be the guy that gets the last guy out. It's kind of what I've done all my life. It's kind of what I've been used to. So obviously we'll look for a different outcome next time, but stuff happens.
It certainly does.
It does. That's why they call it the beautiful game.
Stuff happens. Again, no disrespect to Ian Gibaut, but there has to be a better. And what's the better option? How about anybody? I was looking at the spring training numbers again, just because I was maybe curious. Do you know Ian Gibaut played in more games than any pitcher for the Reds this spring? Any pitcher. He had 11 games played. He obviously didn't have the most innings because he doesn't start, but 11 games played was the most by any pitcher this spring. They were trying to get this guy on the roster. They like him. Whatever it is, they like him. They like him to be a Red. They like him to be a part of the organization. Clearly, Terry Francona likes him, as a guy that's a Hall of Fame manager.
Yeah.
His decision to put him as the closer for the Reds on opening day, the biggest possible spot, they like Ian Gibaut. My question is, why? I don't mean to be too disrespectful. I really don't try to be too disrespectful. But when you look at the pantheon of great pitchers, Ian Gibaut's not on that list. And there's a lot of guys that have played for the Reds over the last 20 years that aren't on that list. There's a lot of guys out there forever that aren't on that list, on any team. But in that moment, our manager, and by the way, I'm a guy who doesn't like criticizing the manager. You guys know this. I stood by David Bell last year when they didn't have a single healthy player. and David Bell was still out there managing the best he could. But Terry Francona making that decision after a dominating game, I don't get it. Maybe he can explain it to me better in this presser.
Going through the middle of the order, and there was just a lot of deep counts.
You said that it was going to be a mix and match situationally with Diaz out. How did you land on Gibaut for the night?
Well, I kind of said how we got there. We used Pregame early. That was probably our other thought. We would have probably flip-flopped those two, but the long at-bat against Hunter probably cost him the 6th inning. So, and again, I thought our bullpen up that point really, really did a great job.
And he's right. They did do a great job. And by the way, shout out to Fox 19 Jeremy Rauch for that first video. I get the decision to go to the relievers he went to prior to Ian Gibaut. Those were all fine. And our guy in the chat, Yash, is saying, well, if he would have done his job, nobody's saying anything, right? He come out there and didn't do his job. The issue was,
it's not supposed to be his job.
It's not his job. Everybody else has a role. I don't know what Ian Gibaut's role is. It's clearly not going to be the closer going forward. If Stuart Fairchild doesn't make
Is it going to be a Red going forward?
If it does, I don't know.
He was the last guy on the roster. You close him opening day. Maybe it's just to make your mind up. You throw him into the fire, so you either close this game or you're gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how, if you are legitimately the last pitcher on the roster, and that's your first outing of the year, how are you on the roster?
I don't know. I can't possibly fathom what happened yesterday. Going forward, I'm sure Terry Francona knows that that's not going to be the situation. There was discussions as Tony Santillan being the closer, and if you watched that 8th inning yesterday, he looked like the best closer I've ever seen. He was disgusting. He was awesome. So were the other 2 guys, the other 3 guys. So that's all I have to say about that. We're going to try to transition over to the positive stuff.
I will say one more thing about that Terry Francona clip that I think does jump out. There's been a lot of tongue-in-cheek, David Bell would have won that game and, all that different stuff about the manager after the offseason we had. I think, a lot of that conversation, might be warranted. We were sold a bill of goods that one hire changes everything, and 1 game into a 162-game season, it doesn't seem like much has changed. I think a lot will, though, and the thing that really jumps off the page to me there is what we saw in that clip from Terry Francona. When has David Bell blown a billion games in his career as a Reds manager? Absolutely. Has he ever given an answer like that in a post-game press conference? Hey, I would have flipped those 2 guys.
No.
I would have flipped those 2 guys if I could do it over again. It's such a candid answer. It's a real manager. It's a real answer. He's telling you what he's thinking. He's telling you what's going on in his mind. That just tells me, even if the Reds' win total doesn't take some kind of massive jump, it's going to be a much better season as a fan, as an organization, to have real people with beating hearts and working brains at the microphone and talking about the team and managing the team. I think even though we're not all sunshine and rainbows with Terry Francona anymore, the honeymoon seems to be over. There's a big change in that post-game press conference from what we've seen from David Bell.
Nobody's saying fire to RM in the chat. Are we saying fire Terry? No, nobody's saying fire Terry Francona. It's game 1. Everybody's eyes were on that game. That's why there's the overreaction. But it is something to watch going forward because it was just a mind-boggling decision. It's crazy to me. He made it. He's going to stand by it, and we're going to move on. That's it. Mr. Most said in the chat, maybe it was a prove it moment. Crazy spot for it to be crazy spot for it to be a prove it moment. But maybe you're right. Maybe it's like we want to see if you have it in you to do this.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Ian Gibaut has a spot on the Reds as the guy, like I said, the innings eater. He's going to come in and he's going to provide some semblance of consistency when the game's out of reach. There is a role for that. There is a job for that. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in Major League Baseball. I'm saying he shouldn't be the closer of the Cincinnati Reds. Yesterday on the show, everybody was down about the bullpen, and I don't think the bullpen was that bad. Ian Gibaut is the one name really on that bullpen that you look at and it's like, all right, maybe I don't really, think that guy is going to be a key contributor. The rest of the names, I really do have belief and faith in. It's just yesterday, Terry Francona went to the wrong guy. He went to the wrong guy. I don't know how nobody in the organization didn't help him with that decision, but Clearly not the right one. In terms of, we talk about all those weird algorithm things last year, losing by 1 run. I don't know what it's called. They all make the joke on it on Twitter. But I sent this to Jacob yesterday. And apparently, based on metrics that I don't understand.
This is the kind of stuff you really like, though.
Yeah, it is. So the Giants yesterday, they were called the Luck Merchants per this Twitter site. Final score 6-4. The deserved to win. The Reds had a 72% deserved to win percentage.
Wow.
The Giants had a 20%. Again, you can take a look at those.
Does that translate to actually winning?
No. You can take a look at those charts and graphs. But it was unlucky because the Reds did dominate. I mean, there's no way around it. The Reds played better than the Giants. I saw Bryce Spalding yesterday tweet out, if you play that game 10 times exactly the way it's played, the Cincinnati Reds win 9 of those 10. Yesterday was the one. That's the kind of thing where I'm almost a little bit tired of it. Because last year you had all those 1-run losses, and they kept piling up and piling up and piling up. And it's like, are we just unlucky or are we bad? And the line gets blurred once you lose all of them.
Yeah.
When you lose all your 1-run games, the lines, it's like you're bad. Yesterday, that was a good team, man. It was just a really, really good baseball team. Every single player outside of Ian Gibaut did their job. It was about as near as a flawless performance as you could possibly play on your first day of the year. It was near flawless. Do we need more from the offense? Yeah, we do. But it was a hell of a pitcher in Logan Webb that we were roughing up, I would say, for the early part of that game.
Lucky for us, we did end up losing by 2 runs, so still 0-0 in 1-run games, able to improve on that from last year. We know how important that is.
The Reds that should count for a 1-run loss. Nick Kirby says, I like Tito. His intangibles have real value, but I don't care at all what a manager says in a press conference. I care what they actually do that increases or decreases the chances of winning.
Yeah,
that's
fair, but the gripe against David Bell, I feel like at least the loudest complaint against David Bell for most of Reds fan base was the press conferences, was the public appearance, and that's just such a stark contrast from what we saw from Terry Francona yesterday. That's all. I certainly don't care if Terry Francona is going to be a press conference manager. I don't need him here. I need him to win games. But I think, yesterday when everyone's holding on to the negatives, it is important to point out, one positive from Terry Francona. And it is, a very, very clear difference from what we've seen from David Bell in the press conferences over the last few years.
I do think, perception does matter, a little bit. I was never a fire David Bell guy. Again, I've made that very, very clear. People disagreed with me. That's fine. I was never a fire David Bell guy because I didn't think that he was costing the Reds games. I thought the players in the field were the ones costing games. Yesterday, Terry Francona did step up. He took accountability. That was on him. I get it. He made a mistake. But it was on him. If you had to give a blame percentage, Terry Francona gets 90%. Ian Gibaut gets the other 10, and nobody else gets touched, in my eyes. And maybe that's a little bit too much blame to put on Terry Francona, but that was his call. Everybody in the world knew Ian Gibaut wasn't the answer, and he still rocked with him. If you want to give me the split thing, that's fine, but it didn't make sense because Tony Santillan had 2 lefties that he faced. So the split thing's inconsistent. We can't.
And if you're going to use that, you have to use it.
You have to use it. You got to be all in with that. So this show is not going to be a fire Terry Francona. That's not what we're doing here.
We're at least a month away.
It's game 1. We were excited yesterday. We were at an all-time high through 8 innings of that game.
Yeah.
I had $100 on it. And we sit here today disappointed. That's what we're talking about. We're going to talk the positives next. I'm going to take a break. We're going to regroup, and we're only going to be positive for the next segment. For all the guys that want to talk about the positives, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I understand, because the Reds played a hell of a baseball game yesterday outside of that 9th inning. And we're going to talk about that next. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports, Off the Bench, Elliot Rearing, Casey McAllister, Jacob Tissett. We'll be right back with you. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Because the Reds played a good baseball game yesterday. They did. We were all impressed. We dominated. On Chatterbox Reds, Trace said it, Nick said it. The Reds played well. I mean, outside of some little blunder, outside of that in the ninth inning, the Reds played a damn good baseball game. And I wanted to start with a couple of them. I want to start with Hunter Green. I said yesterday on the 6-hour show that Hunter Green is going to lead the Reds in WAR this year. And I said it because I believe in him as a leader. Yeah. I believe in him as a key contributor, as a consistent important piece of the starting rotation. He is the fundamental core of what we've got going in our starting rotation. And what we got going is special. We got a lot of names down in the minors that are going to come up this season. We got a lot of names up here that are good. We've got a good starting rotation. It starts with Hunter Green. Hunter Green somehow, and this was a David Bell knock, didn't get to start on opening day last year. Hunter Green needs to be the opening day pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. Until he physically is unable to. Until he physically cannot. Hunter Green's our opening day starter because what he brings is so much fun. It's fire. It's electricity. He started that game, striking out 4 of the first 6. It's awesome watching Hunter Green throw the baseball. And outside of a 2-run home run that I'd argue.
In an 11-pitch at bat.
In an 11-pitch at bat, shout out Elliott. That's right. Not Elliott, Elliott. Outside of that, Hunter Green threw about as well as you could for your first time out. Yeah. 5 innings. I would have liked him to go one more, but he said post game, I didn't have all my stuff, so I understand it. I get it. I'm not making fun of Terry Francona for that call. I just like to see pitchers go as far as they could possibly go. Especially
goes exactly against everything I just said about emptying the tank to try to win on opening day. But 1 out of 162, if your ace and the guy that we're putting so much weight on to be one of the best players on this entire team says he doesn't have his stuff 84 pitches into a game, go to the bullpen.
That's right.
Completely okay with that move, especially after saying that afterwards. I'm not going to lie, I was definitely frustrated during the game because anytime I'm watching a Reds game and Hunter Green's pitching and he comes out of the game, I'm frustrated because he's incredible to watch. Yesterday really just affirmed everything that I thought about him. He's every bit of the ace we expected him to be. I'll bring it up every time we end up talking about how great Hunter Green is because I remember one of the first shows we did with Justin Kinner, it was up at the Memorial, and I said it's not even a question. It's not even close between Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, who the team's ace was, and you guys said I was crazy.
I did.
We're sitting here now, and I don't even know if we all consider Nick Lodolo the 2. And that's not necessarily a point to knock on Nick Lodolo. It's what we've seen from Hunter Green so far and what he did last year. And, I mean, the fact that he went 5 innings yesterday, and it was just, I mean, I know he allowed the home run, but it's complete and utter dominance of just mowing down batter after batter. Whether, the Reds, get it all figured out and they're able to, push for the Central and push for the playoffs, or if they don't, we're going to have an awesome every 5th day.
Yeah.
I texted one of my friends when I was down in the dumps yesterday, and I said, the Reds might win 82 games, but I get to watch God pitch every 5th day and Jesus play shortstop.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun this year, and I think that's the biggest thing from yesterday. Obviously, Hunter with a great day, but the other guys that we put so much pressure on, to see Ellie get on base twice and get a walk, and get on base 3 times, 2 hit and a walk, and then to score 2 runs in the opening day game and just really get those juices flowing of, this is what he does. And the fact that, he scores and Gavin Lux gets out at third, because I'm willing to guess Gavin Lux has never played on a baseball team where that ball's not going home.
Yeah.
Because Ellie's sitting in the dugout by the time that, the cutoff man gets the ball. So, there is still a lot of positives. I know Matt McClain went 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. He also had 2 really hard hit balls that went to the warning track. This is his first, major league action in over a season. I know spring training and all that stuff, but he missed all year last year, and opening day is such a big jump from spring training, and he looked, as good as 0 for 5 can look in terms of, getting up to the plate, having good at-bats, and then the ground ball that ended up, putting the Giants out of reach for the Reds, just barely out of the reach of his glove. So, I mean, this game, as hard as it is to swallow, there is a lot of bright spots in this organization and with this team going into, the next 161 games in the next 3 years or whatever with, this core and Terry Francona at the helm. The 17 strikeouts for this pitching unit yesterday. And I know Ian Gibaut is the antichrist
This
right
is
now.
This is positive segment.
Even,
no Ian Gibaut talk.
He even added one, is what I'm saying.
He did.
So I mean, this pitching rotation, we complained about the bullpen all day yesterday. Is if not the outfield, and it's the bullpen that's going to hold this team back. And the first 3 relievers out of the bullpen mowed down the Giants. And I'm not sitting here acting like the Giants are the Dodgers or the Yankees or some World Series favorite, but they're a formidable team who is at the very least on the Reds level. And I mean, the Reds, as we've said time and time again, dominated that game. A CES home run, and I think it was the biggest smile he's ever had on his face. It's nice to see him, start the season off, pretty well. Yeah, double. Sorry, not a home run. He had a home run last year on opening day. Hopefully, he can keep the momentum going a little bit more this year than he did last year. But there's a lot of guys, and then obviously Candelaria with the 3 RBIs. I mean, these are guys that we talked about have to take a big step in order for the Reds to be competitive this year, and they blow it in the 9th, but most of those guys looked like the role we want them to play this year.
And I think Mr. Mo said it in the chat. The at-bats that the Reds took yesterday, outside of Spencer Steer, and I know this is a positive segment, we're going to have to talk about Spencer Steer eventually.
We are.
I think the at-bats were better yesterday than I've seen them in a year and a half. They were composed. They took their time. They weren't aggressive. They weren't chasing. Again, outside of Spencer Steer. That's my guy, but come on, buddy. That's my guy. They looked so good yesterday. And there's something to watching brilliance. Hunter Green is brilliant.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. I promise you, I'm not the world's leading expert in baseball. God knows there's more people in this office right now that know more about baseball than me. But I can tell you right now, there's not every team has a Hunter Green. Not every team gets to watch that. And by the way, we talked about it yesterday. He signed a 6-year, $50 million contract. A 6-year, $50 million contract for a bona fide ace. A guy who's going to win a Cy Young eventually in his career. 6 years, $53 million. Are there incentives in that contract? Hell yeah, there are. And if he gets to hit every incentive, good for us and good for him. That is a steal, man. And Hunter Green's dominating on that contract. I hope he hits every incentive and becomes a billionaire. I don't know how much the incentive stuff is worth. I really don't. I would have to reread that whole entire contract. But I know there's a lot of that in there. 6 years, $53 million for a guy that's absolutely spectacular. That's one of the best contracts in Major League Baseball. Truly, one of the best, maybe in the last 25 years. Unbelievable contract with how good he is. In terms of the other guys that Jacob just mentioned yesterday, I thought TJ Friedl looked okay. I mean, 2 hits yesterday. I'm not going to complain. He had an RBI in the 9th inning there. I think TJ Friedl is going to be a serviceable leadoff guy. I know that.
I have Hunter's bonuses if you would like those.
I would love them.
$2 million for a Cy Young.
Give it to him.
In the mix for that, for sure. I mean, probably for the rest of this contract. $1 million for each second or third place Cy Young finish.
Okay.
Certainly could be in the mix for that. $750,000 for a 4th or 5th place finish. $500,000 for a 6th to 10th place finish. And then $200,000 for each All-Star selection, totaling $18.2 million over the length of his contract, which is almost the contract.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he certainly has a lot of space there to add a lot of money there. And obviously, we know last year he hit on a couple of those incentives, finishing high enough in the Cy Young and making the All-Star games. So, I mean, certainly well on his way to maxing out that contract.
He is incredible, and I hope he hits every incentive on that contract.
I will not miss a Hunter Green start this year. In terms of watching I obviously can't make them all. They play them all away and get into games, in the afternoon and whatever's tough. I will not miss a Hunter Green start, whether it's TV or radio. You have to watch him pitch or listen to him pitch. When he's on the mound, there are not 10 pitchers better than him in baseball.
No.
Especially when he's on.
Unbelievable. In terms of the offense, like Jacob said, he rattled off some of those names. I'm going to rattle them off too. Elly De La Cruz I'm telling you right now, if Elly De La Cruz's plate discipline, if his plate approach is going to be what I saw yesterday, that guy's going to win the MVP.
Yeah.
He's going to win the MVP. He is so good. The step that he's taken in just a year and a half, 2 years at the plate, it's magnificent. It's legitimately magnificent. I hope the power comes this year. He hasn't tapped into that full power yet. Still not a 30 home run guy. I'm telling you right now, if he plays baseball like he did yesterday, he's going to hit 30 home runs, and eventually he's going to get those steals in too. It was impossible to steal yesterday against Patrick Bailey, but Elly De La Cruz looks fantastic.
With that plate discipline as well, it's not even just the home runs. Obviously, lengthening at bats, getting better pitches is going to help with that, but it's going to be more walks and it's going to be less strikeouts. And how many times, I mean, if Elly De La Cruz is on base, how many times is he scoring? So just the fact that, that OBP seems to be trending in the right direction in terms of how he's handling these at-bats it's more significant for him than anyone else, because the percentage of time that he turns, 2 feet on first base into a home run or into scoring a run is absolutely unbelievable. And I would argue, and I don't think it's an argument anyone would push back against, that he probably does that better than anyone in the MLB. So, I mean, the fact that he continues to progress at honestly such a rapid rate is remarkable. And that's why, I mean, it's the same thing we just said about Hunter Green. I mean, anytime Elly's out there, I'm going to be hard-pressed to find a reason not to watch, because who knows how long we're going to have him here. So we're going to have to appreciate this greatness as long as he's wearing that Reds uniform. Whether the bullpen's good or not, we still have him playing shortstop, and that's going to be incredible. We have 2 guys on this team that, I mean, if any other major league team had them, they'd win a World Series. I'm pretty confident in that. I mean, outside of the small, I guess I'll exclude some of the small market teams like the Athletics, the White Sox, the Pirates. Some of those guys, yeah. If any other big market team had these 2, they'd be the best. They'd be the MVP, Cy Young front runners. They'd be the face of the league, and they still are, by the way. Here in Cincinnati, they still are the face of the league. That's just That's just how good we've got it right now with the Reds. Going again through the rest of some of these guys, Matt McClain, again, Jacob kind of mentioned it. No hits, but he did look good. He looked about as good without a hit as you could look. So for what that's worth, I know that doesn't mean anything. But for what that's worth, the only reason that means something to me is because we haven't seen him in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, if he would have came out there, and with all due respect to your guy, if he would have came out there and took, the hack Spencer Steer was taking for most of the day yesterday, I wouldn't feel great about the rest of this season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to see him, I know it was 0 for 5. I know we don't like to put a lot of weight into, exit velocity and stuff that, ultimately results in an out, because it is an out. It's not a hit. But just Matt McClain in a vacuum, in and of himself, I think it's so important. He's so important for the trajectory of this Reds franchise, that every little win in terms of his progression or his return to what we've seen before is so massive for this team. Yeah. And I'm gonna take every single one I can find.
Jeimer Candelario is another guy. Jacob mentioned it again. 3 RBIs. He had 2 hits, including a major go ahead. I guess was it a go ahead? Yeah, it was the go ahead first run of the game RBI.
Yeah.
Which I love. 2 outs. Elly's able to get on base, and Jeimer brings him home. Like, that's the stuff that we need from a veteran leader of this team. And that's what I think Jeimer Candelario could and should be this year. I know it was down last year, but him, along with about 90% of the roster, was hurt.
Yeah.
So I think some of those numbers last year that you saw from him were skewed. Jeimer Candelario, the Candyman can. And I do think you're going to see an improved Jeimer this year. Defensively, he looked okay. I know there's worries about that. I thought he looked fine. There wasn't a ton of balls hit at him, I would say, but I thought Jeimer looked serviceable. And again,
he chased the one ball all the way to the net that ended up foul. I mean, certainly towards the back half of last
year,
he wasn't doing that.
That's right.
So, I mean, if we're looking for silver linings, I guess you can find some there.
That's right. CES looked comfortable. As a guy who's not the biggest CES believer, I was impressed with what I saw out of him yesterday. He looked smooth. Jacob said it. Just to see him smile on second base, have fun out there, that's what we want to see. I want to see my guys confident and strong and having fun. Mr. Mo said it in the chat, and I don't even know if I said it, but again, their at-bats yesterday were all so good.
Yeah.
They were incredible. And now we'll go to the guy, unfortunately, that I didn't want to bring up, but I have to bring up. Spencer Steer shouldn't be on the Reds right now.
No.
He shouldn't be on the Reds. Maybe it's an overreaction, but I have a hard time believing a guy who wasn't supposed to be on the roster, but then Austin Hayes got hurt, so now he's on the roster, should be on the roster.
He's only here because they need the body, right? I mean,
they need the bat.
You can't run out a major league lineup of bats without Spencer Steer right now with Hayes hurt.
And I get it. I get the rationale behind it, but those at-bats from Spencer Steer were woeful. They were woeful. They were garbage. And he was like, I was watching that first at-bat, I don't know if you guys remember, and yeah, he did get a little bit hosed on a call, should have been a walk. He was begging for walks. Yeah. And you can't do that as a professional hitter, as a DH. There's other positions where you can beg for walks. His job this year is not that. So Spencer Steer, I'm very concerned about. I know this is a positive segment, but he's got to be better.
I'm not as
concerned. If he's up, he has to look like a competitive athlete.
For sure, 100%, I agree. And I think this goes back to what we talked about 2 days ago when Justin asked us, would you have him DH like he did in that Dayton game if he's not 100% healthy? And I think we both unanimously said no. And I think that's what we saw yesterday was an objective answer to that question. That was not Spencer Steer in the batter's box. At least not the version that we need in order to be remotely competitive this year. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know all the MLB rules in terms of rehab assignments and IL dates and everything along those lines. But you got to figure out a way to get him healthy. And I don't think the solution to that is to have him DH for a Reds club just because you need a bat. And maybe it's a 5-day solution until Austin Hayes comes back, and then you send him down or you send him to the rehab or however that's going to work. And, you make that work from there once you get Hayes back. But I don't even know if running out a Hurtubise or a Blake Dunn is worse than that version of Spencer Steer.
It's not.
You put them in the outfield, you DH Gavin Lux, or you put Lux at third and DH Candelario. I think you have a lot of options there for how you can make this lineup work without Spencer Steer. And the version we saw yesterday, there is no reason in my mind that version should be playing for the Reds.
Casey?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that you guys haven't really pointed out yet, and it's more of a whole team effort, is that when things did get bad in the bottom of the ninth and there's 2 outs, they still kept fighting.
Yeah.
They were 10 feet away from tying the ball game. I mean, I love Matt McClain, and he didn't look the greatest, but there was a couple good things to point out there. But the team didn't give up. And I think that's the big thing that maybe last year we might have not seen that with David Bell. I do think that this team plays a little bit harder for Terry Francona. I know it's very subjective. It's a very opinion-based here, this point, but I do think that yesterday I saw some fight, and I think that that's a positive moving forward with this team.
I want to continue with that next segment. I know we're doing Reds heavy today. It was opening day, so forgive us if you don't want to hear Reds the entire time. We would just, it was an exciting game for so long, and I was ready to celebrate it. So we're going to talk about it. One more segment coming up next. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports. Casey, Elliott, and Jacob here with you. We'll be right back. The YouTube thing is kind of weird. You watch YouTube videos and they all say the same thing. Like and subscribe. And they say it because it helps out. So if you're watching right now, if you don't mind, just hitting the little thumbs up for us. Leave a comment after the show. Subscribe. Do all those things that YouTube people ask you to do. I watch a Mr. Beast video and they say all those things. So like the stream for us. Subscribe. And keep watching Chatterbox Sports. We got a lot of Reds content.
Share. That's right, Casey.
Sure.
I did think all that was nonsense, and I hated it, and it annoyed me. And then I started working in this business, and it means the world.
Oh yeah, means a lot.
Likes and shares and comments and subscriptions, everything that means the world. So thank you to everyone that supports. And we know, I think you were saying earlier, Casey, a lot of the people that watch the show every day aren't even subscribed to the channel. So gotta make sure that changes too.
Yeah.
So everybody, again, thank you very much for tuning in today on this Friday. I know it's gloom and doom because the Reds lost, but I'm telling you right now, I have so much positivity regarding that game.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're 0-1. That's a win. I'm just gonna say it right now. It counts as a win because the Reds dominated that game. If the Reds miss the playoffs by 1 game, I'm gonna give them the fake banner and say you made it.
Are you gonna become a luck stat guy this year?
Oh, which one?
The luck stat. And the Reds' record is just whichever games they were over for 50% luck.
Unlucky. And that's what they are. They were unlucky yesterday.
They were. You can't really argue that. I don't
even know if they were unlucky.
But you can hang your hat on that in 1 game.
Yeah.
If you're unlucky, what were they last year? 15 and 18 in 1-run games? That's not unlucky.
Yeah.
So, one game, we can call it unlucky.
It was kind of like
it's got to be 1 game.
It's kind of like you guys don't go to the casino that much anymore.
Yeah.
When I play roulette, right? I got a system. With how I do it. I do it the same way every single time. And eventually, I got a group of 3 different 4-number clusters. I put like $10 in each one of those clusters, and I keep going. I go. Eventually, if that keeps doing well, then I get crazy. And then I start putting 100 down on red and 100 down on green, and I just start losing my mind. It felt like that's what Terry Francona did yesterday. It felt like he was just up by $1 million. He had all the money in the world, and he's like, I can't lose today. Let's go. Let's put 100 on 36.
I know I think this was supposed to be a positive segment again, but it legitimately, to me, it feels like Terry Francona thought that the game was an inning shorter.
But he might have been. He might have. And again,
the three pitchers, 2 strikeouts apiece, the 3 best pitchers in the pen, at least, in terms of our thoughts going into the game. Basically, in the order we would have expected, 7, 8, and 9. And then you go to Ian Gibaut. He might have, he's been out of the game for a whole year.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought they were 8 innings now. We've had this pitch clock and all that stuff. Maybe he thought Manfred went over the edge. I don't know.
Don't do this to yourself, Jacob.
Maybe that's not. No, I think he's
I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help here because I cannot. We're supposed to be off Ian Gibaut. I cannot wrap my head around it at all.
Well, it just doesn't make sense. Like everybody who wants to I heard nothing but complaints and moaning and whining and crying about every little move David Bell made last year.
Every single one.
He didn't make a move that bad all last year.
Not once.
I'm sorry if you disagree, and you are entitled to your opinion. David Dell did not make that terrible of a decision at all last year. I love Terry Francona. He's my guy.
He's gonna be better than David Bell.
We got jerseys of him over here.
I do.
That move yesterday was so laugh out loud bad that it's going to take about a month to process that, oh yeah, we could have had one more as long as our manager, our Hall of Fame manager, didn't put in the one guy that everybody in the known universe knows not to put in. No disrespect, of course.
None.
Let's be positive.
Of course.
Casey mentioned it right before the break. Terry Francona, they play harder. Casey, you're right. I mean, flat out yesterday, they looked more fundamentally sound. They looked more calm. The mechanics, they looked good yesterday from our pitchers outside of one. Everybody played well yesterday. Yeah. I thought that was a complete team effort. You're playing against one of the world's best pitchers in Logan Webb. You dominate him. You kick him out of the game with a lead. Hunter Green has a lead going into the ninth, was going to probably get a win. And I will count it as a win for Hunter Green instead of the no decision. But you're going to see a difference with the way this team plays. Outside of the one base running blunder that Jacob mentioned with Gavin Lux.
Which I legitimately do. I don't like to be an excuse guy. Nowhere in baseball does that ball not go home unless Elly De La Cruz is in front of you.
Yeah.
So it's his first game with the Reds. It's his first game running behind Elly. Obviously, again, you have spring training, but it's a whole different beast when you get out there on opening day. I'm sure you forget a lot of the things you practiced or learned that are different from the habits you've built up over your entire career. So I'm even putting that one as a pretty solid asterisk in terms of how I'm viewing this base running. So yeah, there's so many positives.
It was just a fun.
Which is why it hurts so bad to have the loss, because this would have been an all-time positive.
Defensively they look good. The base path, obviously, outside of that one, looked good. They look better, and that's because of Terry Francona. You're going to see a different Reds this year.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here and say that Terry Francona is worth 25 wins, that he's worth 15 wins, that he's worth 10 wins. But Terry Francona is a better manager than David Bell. He's proven it. He's a world champion. He's a Hall of Fame manager. He's come in here for a reason. And I think he's going to make a difference. Yesterday, again, it's just when you win a lot of money and you're just playing with it eventually. He was playing with house money in the ninth inning, and it bit him a little bit. But I have so many positives to take away from that game. And I'm happy, really, truly, that going forward, I can watch a different brand of baseball than what I watched last year. Because I was worried about that coming into this year. You talk about whether or not it's the players, whether or not it's the manager. I do blame the players more than I blame the manager, just because they're the ones out there. But I understand the logic. I understand the feeling that a manager can give more to his team. Terry's going to do that this year, and that's what I'm excited for. It's not over. I'm going to look at the MLB standings real quick to check it out. We're only a game in. The Cardinals, as we all expected, lead the division. They're 1-0. The Cubs 1-2. They're in second, and the Reds, Pirates, Brewers, obviously all lost yesterday.
It's nice to see the NL Central still the absolute wagon we know and love.
Oh, yeah.
There was a point yesterday where the NL Central was, 0-5?
Oh, yeah.
Because the Cardinals game got rain delayed and the Cubs hadn't started yet? Yeah, that's just unbelievable. Shout out to the NL Central, man, because they truly do give us Reds fans like an extra 2.5 months a year.
They do.
Because they stink out loud. So we stay in the mix. It's really, really nice of them.
Looking for Saturday, obviously we're not going to be here tomorrow, but Saturday, it's Lodolo, versus Justin Verlander.
Yeah. The one positive I would say out of that is Justin Verlander is 95 years old. So
100 years old.
Maybe he's not Justin Verlander anymore. If he is, ruh-roh.
Bad. That would be bad. Saying that, Logan Webb's damn good. Logan Webb's their ace, and the Reds, again, were able to get to him through good at-bats, through good approach. So I'm not going to write that one off. The Reds have to focus and move on to winning this series now.
That's what they got to do, right?
They have to win the series.
You win these next two, everyone's back in by series 2?
Not even a question.
Yeah, I agree.
You win a series. I go by series wins, not individual wins. I know it's different. It's way different when you're talking about the when you're talking about opening day. But boy, they looked good yesterday. 6 hits again for the Giants. 2 walks for Jung-Hoo Lee. Matt Chapman had a hit. 2 RBIs, obviously, in the home run for Heliot Ramos yesterday. Patrick Bailey, he had an RBI and a rip. Wilmer Flores, he hit the dagger to kill the Reds. Wilmer Flores is one of my favorite players and one of my most favorite underrated players in baseball. He's really, really good. And Mike Yastrzemski, he had 2 hits yesterday. Outside of that, I mean, their lineup didn't look great. I'd say they've got a decent amount of names on that lineup that you're scared about, but the Reds pitching staff was able to shut them down.
Interesting nugget during the game that I thought was a little bit funny when we saw your guy, Elliot with an H, Heliot Ramos, hit the home run. He is the Giants' 19th left fielder since Barry Bonds, 19 left fielders in 19 years. So a new one every year since Barry Bonds in San Francisco, starting on opening day. Obviously, he played some for them last year, but 19 different starters at that position on opening day, which is just insane.
Reed said they still haven't had an outfielder who's hit 30 home runs or a player that's hit 30 home runs? Any player?
I believe that is the stat.
That's insanity, man. I know it's a pitcher's ballpark out in San Fran, but I would have thought one lefty would be able to put that in the river out there and right there. But
yes, or last year was the first time ever that a righty put it in the river.
Yeah,
I believe, and I think it was Heliot Ramos.
Was it?
I believe so.
I think you're right. I'm not confident enough to say it. But again, the Reds take on the Giants this weekend. They got Saturday. Is that a 4:00 game?
It is.
Okay,
it is.
So
4:00 right into the Elite Eight. I mean, that's going to be a phenomenal day if the Reds can
Prime day. Are you going to that one?
Sure I am.
Good. Is that kids' opening day?
It is kids' opening day, so I'm going to have to finagle through that. But I didn't get to do my Reds opening day drinking on Thursday, so now the kids are going to have to watch.
That's fair. The kids are going to have to hear you yell and scream.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my fault.
1:40 on Sunday. 1:40 on Sunday. Obviously, again, the Giants pitching staff's loaded. They got Robbie Ray slated for that game.
It's supposed to be beautiful tomorrow.
Against Nick
Not
Martinez.
quite as nice on Sunday. So if you're deciding between the two, maybe lean towards tomorrow.
But it's going to be a fun. I promise you right now. I'm not saying they're a playoff team, but they're an exciting brand of baseball. I promise you. The Reds are going to be fun to watch this year. You got a couple generational superstars on the team, and you got a lineup that looks better than I think it probably is. I know the outfield's a mess. I think that's going to be fixed. By the way, Jake Fraley didn't contribute anything, a lot offensively, I should say. I don't want to say anything. He didn't contribute a lot offensively.
Had
an absolutely incredible catch. Was it the 8th inning?
Yeah,
7th inning or 8th inning?
Kept the game tied.
So, again.
Or kept the Reds in the lead at the time.
They believe in Jake Fraley. They believe he can be that guy. I'm happy that was the case. But now, we're going to switch over to talk about some other sports. We got a Bengals segment. We got a March Madness segment. So we're gonna continue on here. Thank you for listening to us about the Reds there. I know Chatterbox Reds does a very good job. We just have some Reds thoughts, for you as well, and we wanted to get those out. So off the bench, Chatterbox Sports. Casey, Elliott, and Jacob here live from Hamilton, Ohio. The sun is shining.
Great.
The vibes I have.
My left leg
the Reds,
is 25 degrees minimum warmer than the rest of my body.
There we go. I love that.
I mean, at least.
I'm
just getting the reverberation of the sun over here. It's great.
Positive vibes only. The Reds are 1-0, asterisk 0-1.
That's right.
1-0 through 8 innings. 1-0 through 8 innings.
We're going to follow the Reds' first 5 record this year.
Correct. We're going to do it the whole way.
I think so.
But see, I'm not confident in the bullpen anymore. I felt great yesterday.
I did too.
After the bullpen. I don't even. But okay, this is where I'm wrong. I don't count Ian Gibaut as part of the bullpen. I don't count him as part of the bullpen. I know he's there. That's where he pitches, but he's not a part of the bullpen.
That's what he
does.
does.
He comes. That's Terry Francona.
He led the league in innings.
Terry, I know you don't know me.
Led the team in innings.
Terry, I know you don't know me. I met you once. I love you, Terry. He's going to be the guy, I promise you, when you're up by 15 or you're down by 15, he's the guy that's going to give you 4 innings of shutout baseball. That's when Ian shines. Or he's not going to be on the roster anymore. I don't know. Your choice. Either way, off the bench, Chatterbox Sports, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. The sun is shining. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is a beautiful Friday heading into the weekend. Congratulations to all of you. You made it. You made it to the weekend.
That's right.
So have yourselves a nice little weekend. Go to the game tomorrow, the Reds game that is. FC play? FC play at home this weekend? Do we know? Let's see. I put that question on them, and I know that that's my fault. So let me see.
I will say while you're looking it up, I don't think there's a better feeling than being alive in the second weekend of March Madness.
That is true.
Just the vibes
that is true.
of and playing on Thursday and having Friday off before the Elite Eight, you just get to soak it all in. I think this is one of the highest vibes in terms of sports reaching a point that's not the championship, just because of the way it's all set up, the week leading up to the Sweet 16, the day before the Elite Eight. Just a phenomenal feeling.
FC does play tomorrow. They're on the road. They're in Nashville. KC, if you want to drive up to Nashville, I'll drive you up there.
That is down.
Down there.
Pretty clearly straight
Here's the thing
down.
about me and directions. No matter where I'm going, I'm saying we're going to go up there.
All right.
Every time.
I'm okay with that as long as you're consistent.
If I'm in Maine, I'm going to say we're going to go up to Texas.
Okay.
That's how I've always operated.
I'm okay with that.
So Nashville, thank you, Josh and Michael Ackley. They're our FC guys in the chat. So go out, have yourself a nice little weekend, everybody. Positive vibes only. PVO. Positive vibes only. March Madness. Disturbed concert tomorrow. How about that? David Shaw.
Oh, wow.
My favorite Disturbed song is a Simon & Garfunkel song. So
okay.
it works together. It's The Sound of Silence.
It's a great song.
But they do it real deep.
Both of them are great.
Yes. AJ Worse. He's going to Hooters on the River. No free ads, but he's going to Hooters on the River. I guess.
Soak it in while they're still
open. I was going to say,
is
that a farewell visit?
Yeah.
Hooters on the River.
Yeah,
I think it's going away soon.
What a generational establishment that is. No free ads.
Of course, no free ads. And continuing on here with the March Madness games yesterday, I thought the games were great. I mean, I know yesterday, or excuse me, the prior weeks or the prior games, I've had an issue with. I think it has been a pretty boring chalk tournament, as probably as much as you can get.
Can't argue with chalk. I think some people might push back on boring, but for sure.
It's just if you don't have a team, and it's honestly the college football debate.
Yeah.
If you don't have a team like Alabama, if you don't have a team like Duke, it's harder to have fun with this
for sure. And the fact that the Cinderella is John Calipari, Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like it's not. It doesn't feel like any of the little guys really have a chance, which has been what brings a lot of people to March Madness anyway.
Correct. So again, yesterday the games were very, very good. Tonight we've got a great slate. But before we get into that, you tweeted it yesterday, and I saw somebody was like a little bit mean with you with their response.
Yes.
to it.
Yes. I don't think it was necessarily mean as much as it was. Why are you asking this to change when it's been the same forever?
Yeah.
We'd be in a pretty rough place as a world if we just kept everything the same as it's been the same forever. So, I mean, you always got to be looking for change.
Look for change. Be an advocate for change. Yesterday, it's a Thursday. I understand the first Thursday and Friday. I love how they're scheduled that day.
Yes.
There's so many games, you stagger them perfectly. When we get to the Sweet 16, we have to stagger games better. I don't know if it's for the West Coast people. I don't know if it's for the primetime slate. But there is no reason for games to start at 7:09, which is it's what it is tonight.
Right.
7:40.
That's what it was yesterday, too, at the same time.
Then it's 9:40, asterisks whenever those games end.
Right.
And then 10:09. All you got to do, let's move it up an hour, right? The traditional work day or whatever, that ends at like 5. Let's start games at 6. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Or what you do, you start 2 games at the same time or 15 minutes apart. There's no reason. Last night, I know I'm going to sound like a grump and an old man. I get it. There's no reason for me to watch overtime last night at 3 a.m. There's no reason for it.
I think it was like 12:45, but the point still stands.
I exaggerate.
No, you're right.
Everybody knows
and
that.
You want me to make you a little bit more upset?
Yeah.
You want to guess what time the games tip off on Saturday? 6:10 and 8:50. Perfect. So they know.
But why?
They know what they should do. They just
Why?
choose not to.
I don't get it.
Go 6, 7, 8, 9.
I don't get it. There's no way around it. Excuse me.
It's
the
frustrating.
The TV stuff is whatever. I'm clearly not well adversed in the TV formula, but God, that's got to change eventually because I can't be staying up till 3 a.m. every weeknight watching March Madness. I love it for Thursday, Friday. That's why a lot of people call off for those days. But You're not calling off for the Sweet 16. You're not calling off for the Sweet 16.
You also you'd have to call off for today.
Yeah,
because you're up so late.
Yeah,
it's a tired.
You're just tired. You're just too tired. But the games last night and the games today. So we'll start with the games last night. Alabama, again, we mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
They looked as good as you could possibly look. I think Alabama, if there was a team that wasn't a 1 seed that's going to win it, it would be Alabama. I think we're all on that.
Correct. There is not a team in the country that can beat Alabama when Alabama is playing their game well.
Yeah.
And that is a take that I've had for the entirety of the season and honestly back to last season and even the season before when we were the number 1 overall seed. This pace that Nate Oates has Alabama playing at, the amount of shots that they get, the amount of points that they score per possession. I know everyone points to the defensive metrics and how they are poor in comparison to teams that usually compete at the level that they've competed for the last 3 years. But when you outpace the other team so drastically and take so many shots early in the shot clock, you're trading 3 for 2 more often than not, and you're trading 2 possessions for 1, 3 possessions for 1 a lot of the time. So it's such a unique brand of basketball. I know I brought it up earlier, in March on this show, but I know a lot of people in our chat and listen to the show are gamblers, so I'm sure they know about the trapezoid of March Madness and how you have to be in that in order to win the championship, or at least that's how it's been since 2000.
Yeah.
Alabama obviously hasn't won a championship in the last 3 years, but a Final Four, the number 1 overall seed, and then back to the Elite Eight this year. They've never once been in that trapezoid, and they match it on every offensive metric. They possess the ball too much in order to fit in most of those metrics. It's unbelievable to watch, and I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite saying last night's game was unbelievable to watch because that's an NBA game.
Yeah.
I mean, they shot 100 threes. The possessions were out of the gym, and I have a billion Alabama stats that I would love to share with our viewers when we get there, but I know you have...
No, I was just going to say, I mean, they had 93 points on threes and free throws alone.
That one's the game.
If they did not make a 2-point basket.
Oh, yeah.
If the University of Alabama did not make a 2-point basket in the game, they win by 5. They win by 5. That is outrageous.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Like you said it there, it's a different brand of basketball. It's unique. It's fun. If I had a team like that, I'd make it my whole personality. I would live and breathe that brand of basketball. What do we shoot? We shoot the ball 3 seconds into the shot clock, and if we miss, we just do it again the next time.
Yeah,
that's electric. I understand it can be frustrating, obviously, if you have a cold night.
And that happens to Alabama, and that's why it's usually a trendy upset pick, because they do shoot the ball so much, and if they do have a cold night, they're susceptible to that.
Yeah. All right, I want to see your stats.
Okay, all right, these are good. Last night, Alabama became the second team in NBA, WNBA, or Division I history, men's or women's, to have a player make 10 threes and 2 others make 5 threes, joining the 2022 Golden State Warriors. With Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one. Alabama's the first team to score 100 in a Sweet 16 game since North Carolina in 2016. 113 points in the Sweet 16 game is the most since seeding began in 1979, and the most by 5 points since the field expanded in 1985. Alabama's 1.43 points per possession is the highest by a team in the second weekend or later since 2015. Their 27 assists are the most in a game in the second weekend or later since 2008.
Oh, my God.
Alabama's the first team in Division I history to score 100 points and 5 wins over AP-ranked opponents in a single season. The Tide have scored 100 in against 7 NCAA tournament teams, the most since the 1990 Arkansas Razorbacks. Yeah, this is. I mean, it was such a fun night. Mark Sears is the first player.
They didn't miss, dude. They didn't miss.
Yeah, Mark Sears is the first player in Division I history with 10 threes and 8 assists in a single game. Iona's A.J. English came close with 7 assists in 2015, the only light game. 77% of Alabama's shots tonight came from three, the highest rate ever by a team in the NCAA tournament game. 51 attempts, also a record. They broke the record with about 9 minutes.
51 attempts was the record?
51 attempts was the
record. And they shot 50%.
They sure did. They sure did. Mark Sears, Aiden Holloway, shout out Auburn, let him transfer to Alabama. Mark Sears, Aiden Holloway, and Chris Youngblood are the first trio of Division I teammates, each with 5 threes in a game in the last 4 years. The only other team to do it? Alabama in 2021 with John Petty, Javon Quinterly, and Josh Primo.
Unreal, man.
Those are my Alabama stats for you.
I'm telling you right now, Alabama could absolutely beat Duke.
It's one of the most fun.
It's going to be a shootout.
It's going to be a really, really fun game. In terms of just, I think they match up well.
Yeah, they do.
Duke's going to try to bang it down low, and Alabama's going to try to make them trade twos for threes. So that's the only chance you have of beating a team like Duke. And I think if we're going to avoid, a 1-seed Final Four, that's probably our best bet at this point. I mean, maybe Michigan State, if they can get to a point where they're playing Auburn. I mean, heck, maybe Michigan can sneak Auburn. But I feel like with the way Florida's playing and the way they looked last night against Maryland, and I've been so high on Houston all year long, I feel like Alabama against Duke, and obviously I'm biased. I'm wearing the Final Four shirt from last year. But I feel like this Alabama team and the way they play basketball is our best chance at avoiding 4-1s in the Final Four. And I know they're the 2, and I know they're the second best 2, and I know they were in the mix for a 1 seed. So it doesn't even feel like an underdog. But just something about looking at the Final Four and seeing 1-1, 1-1, not my favorite thing in the world, especially when my team's a 2.
100%. Going over around, we mentioned the Maryland stuff. They mentioned the Maryland-Florida. How much do you think that played into that game yesterday? Getting booed on the way to the game, and then just getting your teeth kicked in by Florida. By the way, Florida. Here's a fun fact.
Most of that game.
It was Florida. If I saw the clip right, Florida's manager is the kid's name. I don't know what the kid's name was, so you're gonna have to excuse me. I think his name was Bennett Anderson. I believe
he hasn't played since like September.
He's made 1 basket all year coming into it.
Yeah.
He had more points by himself with 2. He played 1 minute, had 2 points. That was more than the Maryland bench.
That's good.
That was more than the Maryland bench.
Who could have seen that coming?
How much? Well, that wasn't it. Like how much do you think that plays into it? Because these kids are all professional athletes. It's my understanding. I watched UC get their brains beat in by Florida and Tim Tebow when Brian Kelly left. I think it matters. You can say it doesn't matter, and I remember the attitude when that happened in the Sugar Bowl was, we're going to win it in spite of him. We're going to be great. We're great. But then it's in the back of your minds like, we're playing for a guy or we're playing for an organization that just quit on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's brutal. Do you think it matters that much or no?
Certainly. No question about it. Now, I will also say I don't think the outcome of that game changes.
I agree.
I don't think Kevin Willard, being committed to 3 more games at Maryland necessarily gets them over Florida. I think to a degree, the fact that their bench scored 0 points, and we talked all year about the fact that they have no depth, and if the Crab Five gets in foul trouble or tired in a tournament game, that they're going to really struggle. So, I think Maryland lost to a really good team. That's a nightmarish matchup, and it just didn't really work out well for them. I mean, Florida out-rebounded Maryland 42-20.
Yeah, it's
15-7 on the offensive boards. You're not winning a game like that. I don't care how committed your coach is. So, I mean, Kevin Willard, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, he handled it terribly. Did it affect Maryland? Absolutely. Is Maryland still alive if he's more committed? I don't think so. Yeah. So, everyone putting all the blame on him, I think he should be getting – it's tough, I know, and I haven't been in the situation I know you have with UC, but at some point if you're Maryland and you go on a run like this – I'm tending to liken it more towards if Fickell would have left the year before.
Yeah.
How do you have this kind of resentment to this coach who not only gets you to the Sweet 16 for the first time since, I think it was 2004, he also kept Derek Queen home. This is a 5-star kid, a top 10 recruit who went to Montverde, a prep school that doesn't even go to school. And, he's from Baltimore, and he's being committed by every school across the entire country, and you get him to come to Maryland? And he hits a buzzer beater in the round of 32 to send you to the Sweet 16. Like, he built a dream for Maryland fans, and I know that he's tearing it down at the peak, and it's a hard pill to swallow. I think in a few years, Maryland fans are going to look back very fondly on Kevin Willard.
I think that's fair. It's just a tough situation
Absolutely.
Right now. Rolling on here, by the way, I saw this stat too. Teams who had buzzer beater game winners are 1-7 in the last 10 tournaments, I think.
In the game following.
Yes. So unbelievable stat there. And finally, last night, Duke Arizona again. I'm not going to really weigh too much into that one. Arizona played as hard as you could possibly lose. They just weren't as good as
They
Duke.
played a perfect game.
Yeah, they played as well as you could possibly play. They're just not as good as Duke.
Caleb Love versus Duke, top 5 to 10 individual rivalry in like the history of college sports.
I think it might be.
They asked him in the pregame show, 2 years at Arizona now, you're really soaking it in.
Yeah.
First team all Big 12 this year at point guard. Obviously a great player for the Wildcats, Tommy Lloyd in that program. They asked him, would rank, the teams you hate.
Yeah.
He goes, I hate Duke. They asked him, is Arizona State?
Yeah.
Any Big 12 rivals? He goes, I hate Duke. So, I mean, I love, as a guy who, gets very, very much wrapped up in college sports rivalries and how much the history means and how I think that's one of the greatest parts of college sports that makes them so much different from pros and how awesome it is to see a guy carry that hatred from school to school and then go off for 35 points on 5 of 11 from 3. I mean, that's a storybook ending. I would have loved to see them get over the top, partially because I don't want to have to play Duke in the next round. But, I mean, to see him cap off his college career, obviously he would have liked to have a win. Obviously he would have liked to be cutting down the nets, in a couple weeks to end that career. But this is, pretty close to as good as it can go out for Caleb Love. 35 against Duke, that's who he is. That's who he's always going to be remembered as.
Yeah.
He ended Coach K's career and almost ended Cooper Flagg's. So, kudos to him. He's a college basketball personality and player that I don't think I'll ever forget in terms of, tournament success and memorable moments. He's a special college player.
In the world of NIL, I'm glad those players still exist. You need those players.
Absolutely.
They're the backbone of the sport, of every sport, really. I mean, guys that play 3-4 years in college, you just remember them forever.
I mean, going back to it now, and it's just the team I'm closest to, so I know most about them. Back to Alabama, but everyone points to NIL and transfer portal being a huge negative, for the way college basketball is trending. Mark Sears grew up unrecruited, 2-star recruit, grew up in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, 45 minutes from campus. He went to Ohio because he wasn't recruited by Alabama. He scored 1,000 points as a freshman, was first-team All-MAC, transferred to Alabama. He's been there for 3 years. He's now scored 1,941 points. He's the second-leading scorer at his favorite college growing up. He's the second-leading scorer in the program's history.
That's awesome.
That's the other side of NIL, where these guys are able – maybe we do lose. Mark Sears, a 4-year senior at Ohio, maybe they are going on a run to the Sweet 16. But also, you're giving these kids chances to live out dreams at marquee schools when maybe they didn't have the lights on them in high school that they had before. So, I mean, I know, there are obviously negatives to all of this stuff, but there are positives too. And it is very important, I think, to point those out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're out of time this segment. Obviously, the Texas Tech Arkansas, we mentioned that game in the headlines. Brutal collapse by Arkansas and Coach Cal. You texted me last night. It would be very, very funny to have Coach Cal in the Final Four as a 10 seed with Arkansas and have Kentucky get bounced. But Kentucky now can take the step up. Can Mark Pope get farther than Coach Cal has?
2-0 against Tennessee this year.
Oh yeah,
Tennessee 4.5-point favorite.
I guess we'll do that. We'll do that to end the segment real quick. Ole Miss, Michigan State. 3.5 in favor of Michigan State. Who you got there?
So that line has moved 1 point from 2.5 to 3.5, and that is an important movement because Chris Beard is 2-0 against 2 seeds as an under 3-point dog.
Really?
Unbelievable stat. But now that it is 3.5, that stat goes out the window. I did bet on Ole Miss yesterday, but I think this Michigan State team just wants it so bad. I mean, they don't have the talent to be this good. I don't think anyone would push back on that. They weren't projected to be anywhere close to the top of the Big Ten this year. They won it by 4 games.
Yeah.
So I'm done betting against Michigan State. I'm taking Izzo. Last I checked the calendar, it's still March for a few more days.
I'm going to take Ole Miss. I hate the SEC, and I don't love Chris Beard as a human. But man, if he can't coach a basketball team,
these are 2 coaches you don't bet against in March. It's tough.
I'm gonna take Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has a fire in them this year.
They're a very fun team to watch.
And there's always this stat about unranked preseason teams getting to that Final Four. I think Michigan State's going to lose. Michigan State just doesn't have the guy.
Correct.
They just don't have the guy.
Unless Jace Richardson decides to go off for 30 like he does, every now and then.
Correct. Kentucky, Tennessee, you mentioned. We have 4.5 points favorite for Tennessee. Tennessee has not beaten Kentucky this year. I don't think they're going to beat them tonight. I'm going to take the Wildcats plus 4.5. I think Kentucky. The old notion you can't beat a team 3 times. Tough to beat. throw that out the window. Kentucky's beaten them 3 times outright tonight, plus 4.5 and money line.
Alabama beat Kentucky 3 times this year, averaged 104 points in those 3 games. I am taking Tennessee minus 4.5. I just think they're the better team. I don't have faith in Oweh scoring to the point I think he would need to against that defense. And Chaz Lanier is the best transfer we've seen since Dalton Connect. So I don't know where Rick Barnes in Tennessee keeps finding these guys, but they'll pull another one out next year and be just as good. I'm taking Tennessee. Rick Barnes, at some point, is going to get to a Final Four.
I don't know.
I don't think it's this year because I think Houston's just too good, and maybe it's Kentucky that trips them up. These are 2 back-to-back really, really tough games if Houston's able to get by Purdue, but this Tennessee team's really, really good. And senior guards in March, I have a tough time betting against them. Zakai Ziegler's been at it for so long.
Yeah. Michigan is a 8.5-point dog against Auburn. I'm not an Auburn guy. You're not an Auburn guy. I'm going to take the couple of 7-footers and Dusty May out of Michigan. I'm going to take them to cover that spread, not to win the game.
Yeah.
But I think 8.5 is too much here.
I'd rather dive and pick one of these teams to win a game. So
I forgot. Casey, pick for him. 8.5. Michigan is an 8.5-point dog against Auburn. He's going Auburn minus 8.5. All right. And finally, tipping off, I imagine, somewhere around 1 a.m.
1 a.m.
Purdue, the 4 seed, taking on Houston. Of note that this game is a home game for Purdue.
Yeah.
Saying that, I think Houston smacks them out of the gym. I don't think this game is remotely close. If you had to list the teams that are still alive, Purdue's the one that just doesn't fit right now. And I think Purdue's going to get blown out of here. Minus 8.5, minus 9.5, minus 20.5. It doesn't matter. Take Houston. Alt line minus 50. They're going to blow them out of the gym tonight.
They are begging you to take Purdue.
Yeah.
9.5 at home. They are begging you to take Purdue. Houston is my absolute favorite play of the entire day. The way they were able to, allow Gonzaga back in that game, but never really lose control and still win it at the end with, that incredible defense and shot making when they needed it. I still don't think anyone's beating Houston this year.
That's fair.
I don't think anyone in the country can play their game in terms of how they slow it down and defend. I mean, they had maybe the most dominant game in the first round, and no one talked about it because Duke scored 100 and beat their 16 seed and all that stuff. And Auburn looked, shaky for a little bit and then pulled away, won by 20. So no one talked about that game. And Florida scored 100. So those were the ones you're talking about. Little old Houston scored a measly 78, but SIU Edwardsville had 40. You aren't allowed to play basketball when they're defending you.
No.
It is the exact antithesis of Alabama, and that's why I want that Final Four matchup more than anything, because it would be a shock to the system to try to watch that game. But I love Houston tonight. I think they're legit.
Does it at least scare you a little bit that me and you are so high on Houston?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
Because I'm more high on it. I might have to bet Purdue and just hate watch that entire game because I think Houston's going to blow them out by 80.
Yeah, I did that last night. I was so high on against Duke on the plus 9.5, and I ended up just betting Duke. I was I'm not going to be dumb here. They'll cover it, and obviously that didn't happen. But
that's our show today. ESPN 1410, Wing AM for our radio listeners in Dayton. Thank you guys very much for putting up with us. Hopefully, Kenner is back on Monday, and we will see you guys then. From Casey McCollister, from Jacob Tissett, and from myself, Elliot Rearing, this has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Everybody have a very splendid weekend, and go responsibly, drink some beers, and have some fun. So we'll see you guys on Monday.
Roll Tide.
This is just YouTube.
That's right.
Now we're just hanging out.
That's right. It's always a good time.
Now
Thank everyone that tuned in today. Usually we never, we don't know how these shows go when, it gets put on us to host. We like having a bus driver in the studio, and we held it down today, and you guys joined us.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that.
I like having a little bit of a leader in here just to keep me corralled. I needed somebody to corral me a little bit. So Jacob and Casey were my corrallers today. Evan was in the chat. For those of you who don't know, our good friend Evan Maurer.
Face of the franchise.
Evan Maurer is a guy that I've sat at a Reds game with him, I think 2 times. I know at least 1 time. Evan's great. I love watching games with Evan. The casual fan would hate Evan's baseball take so much, and I think they do hate his take so much.
They do.
I think he could get inside, like mentally dominate anybody in the entire world. Evan came in our chat a few minutes ago, and he said in all caps, David Bell literally would not do anything like Francona did yesterday. Bell knows the matchups. Francona is mid. Evan then said, the fan base is lost, pretending Bell would do anything like Francona did yesterday. He never made decisions like that. Bell made practical, data-driven decisions on the regular.
So our guy Mousecop has also been raving the David Bell flag all day.
I have
too.
I
think that one's more of a, I think your guys is more of a bit.
Correct.
I don't know.
I think
that this is.
I think Evans is real. I
do too.
And for what it's worth, I do think it's a pretty fair gripe to have an issue with what Terry Francona did. I know there's.
I think it's weird not to.
Yeah, and it's so funny that my Twitter right now is being flooded by people. You got to give the manager a shot. You got to give him a chance. When last year it was, you got to get rid of this manager. Everything he did, and it's like it's so funny how the tides have turned. But that's what baseball is. It's fun. It's fun to talk discourse in this sport. Evan, I think Evan's right. I don't think David Bell would have done it. I'll say this: David Bell probably wins that game last year.
Yes.
I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Yes. David Bell probably wins that game. Is David Bell probably going to win more games than Terry Francona is this year? Probably not. Like both things can be true. Correct. So yesterday was a disaster at the end, but Terry, for the long haul, I'm going to still bet my money on Terry. I'm not gonna do that. So I'm not going to go against my guy. I did contemplate where was Skip Schumacher in the 9th inning.
That's a good question.
Where are you, Skip Schumacher, right now?
Do you think? I mean, I know we kept bringing up Skip Schumacher for manager. He should probably be in our outfield.
Skip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. Honestly, we need the bodies at this point.
That's what I'm saying.
We need the bodies at this point. So if Skip wants to come manager, if he wants to be our skipper, or if he wants to be out in right field, whatever you want, Skip, you come contact me. But I do understand the frustration yesterday. I think it's more than fair to have questions regarding that move because it was like I said at the beginning, it was the most baffling decision maybe of all time.
It makes no sense.
No sense.
Usually I can at least disagree, but rationalize why a decision would have been made. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I tried all night last night. Can't do it.
Can't do it. There was bad juju when he had to get his teeth fixed at 2 a.m. There was bad vibes when that happened. I knew there was something.
Yeah.
Jacob jokingly told me yesterday, should we cash out of our Reds in the first inning? Boy, were you right.
Yeah, I forgot I said that.
Boy, were you right. I also did. I don't know how much this was discussed. For those of you who watched the stream yesterday, I did say in the 8th inning, with 2 outs, I believe I said it. I said, boy, our Reds are absolutely and they stopped me. I was going to say that the Reds are absolutely dominating the Giants. And after that, it was the Jake Fraley miracle catch and right, and then the Ian Gibaut blow up. So many people are saying I did curse and jinx the Cincinnati Reds. For that, I do apologize.
You are usually one of the most, if not the most, self-aware person when it comes to gambling jinxes.
They look so good, though. They look so good, and I firmly believe that there was no chance they'd lose. Just because, again, the relievers that we had out there,
they certainly weren't going to go to Ian Gibaut in the 9th.
We all sat here and stood, it's Ashcraft, it's Ashcraft, it's Ashcraft. There's no way it's Ian Gibaut.
I don't think I'll ever in my life forget the look on Kirby's face when I read the tweet before the broadcast showed it.
Yeah,
that Gibaut was the one warming up because his jaw was on the floor.
Yeah. Kirby came in this morning, and I saw him, and I've never seen Kirby rattled about the Reds. He's the most level-headed Reds fan we've got. Him saying to me this morning, and it was early. We got in here at 9:15, and he looks at me and he goes, "Elliot, I can't believe that move." And it's gonna take a while to get over it. Reed is in the chat. Cubs won. I fell asleep in the 6th. I did bet PCA home run. That did not hit Reed. I was hoping for a PCA home run. Didn't put a lot on it, but I did have something on it. I was going to put Eugenio Suarez did home run, and I wimped out, and he hit one.
Damn.
So that's a bummer.
Should have taken Tyler O'Neill. He's at 5 in a row, 6th yesterday.
Yeah, it's almost like I said that, and then Jacob looked at me and said, "No, it's stupid. Don't do that."
We're even because of Bama's team over.
That's fine. I was against Bama's team over. He sent one to the warning track. That should pay.
In that case, the Reds won yesterday.
In that case, the Reds won by 30 yesterday. Well, I don't know. They had a couple warning track balls.
They
too.
did.
Let's go over real quick to end the show today. We're going to talk a little bit more about basketball just for fun. Is your bracket busted?
The furthest thing from it.
My bracket's busted.
Yeah.
So just to take a look at my bracket, I did a lot of brackets, but I only did one for big money this year. And my bracket right now has, I think, still 5 Elite 8 teams.
Wow, okay.
But I did have some, disgusting decisions. I had Louisville and Clemson, both in the Elite 8.
Yeah.
And I also had St. John's. The rest are still good. My Final Four is still intact. But the Elite 8 has been shredded. And now
that's tough.
And now I'm dead. And I took Duke, so everybody else took Duke too. So there's no shot to win that.
I have no letters anymore. No M or anything. I'm in the top 1.5 million. 1,387,191st.
Wow.
95%. And the best part, obviously, the little fire emoji on the ESPN app. Nothing feels better.
Yeah.
When you open it up and you see that little thing. Final Four still intact. Nothing too crazy, which obviously helps with that. But I have Michigan State, Auburn, Duke, and Alabama.
Yeah.
Or not Duke and Alabama. Michigan State, Auburn, Alabama, and Houston. So we have that in the Final Four. My Sweet 16 and Elite 8s are still intact. Florida and Texas Tech both moved on. I had that. Houston and Tennessee is what I had in the other bracket. Both of them obviously still alive. Bama, Duke, as I said earlier, in the other one. And then Michigan State, Auburn in the other one. So all of those, I did go more chalk.
You look good.
But I am all the way alive into the Elite 8, which is an unbelievable feeling. And it also helps that I picked Houston as my champion.
Houston is the champion's major.
In all of my brackets, everyone that I'm close with, it's either Florida, Auburn, or Duke.
Yeah.
So the fact that I have the other 1 seed, and also obviously a lot of my friends from school picked Alabama. So I couldn't pick Alabama as bad as I wanted to because that's over half of my big money pool is Alabama as the champion. So I had to go the other way. Picked Houston, and honestly, I'm feeling as good about it as possible because with looking at everyone else as champion, you got Florida and Auburn playing each other first. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's a lot of chances to pick up some wins there and get to the championship even if they don't win. I think I'm going to win at least 2 of my 3 is what it's looking like as long as we get Houston at least to the Final Four. So it's a big piece. But this is the best my bracket has looked latest in a long time.
I won a bracket when I was in 8th grade. I have not won a bracket since.
Yeah.
Have not won a bracket since.
It's brutal.
It's disgusting. Casey, I know you're not a bracket guy, but if
Did you fill one out?
If you were...
I did not even fill out.
By the way, another insurance.
Nice.
And all I get is insurance
Forgot that was
calls.
still going on.
All I get is insurance calls, and he'll probably call back that I answered it. I've gotten nonstop texts. I've gotten 5 texts since the start of the show and 2 calls. Good. So that still goes on. When do I have to apologize to the SEC? Am I there yet?
Well,
at some point I have to say I'm sorry.
You didn't apologize when they broke the record for Sweet 16s?
No.
Are you going to apologize when they break the record for Elite 8s?
I don't think so.
What about Final Four?
I think if it's an SEC championship, I have to apologize.
SEC versus SEC?
Yeah, I think if it's an all SEC championship, I'd have to apologize.
If we win, you have to apologize.
Or
if the SEC wins the championship, the best conference college, that's done.
What? If Kentucky wins, I won't.
Deal.
Okay.
If Kentucky wins, something went terribly.
I was gonna say if Kentucky wins, the tournament was flawed.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But other than that,
I'm with you there. I do. I think there's a very realistic world where we have all 4.
I think there's a chance. I think there's
that door is wide open.
I think there's a legitimate shot
because we can beat Duke.
Alabama can. I don't know if
Alabama can beat Duke.
No one else can beat Duke, though.
Alabama can beat Duke. Every other region has an SEC team favored to come out of it.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think
Houston, Tennessee's almost a pick 'em, but still.
I would take Houston.
I would as well. I think Tennessee is Houston light.
Yeah.
That's what we just saw with BYU, Alabama. Usually when you have two teams that play the same style of basketball and one is better at it, it gets really ugly.
Yeah.
Just because everything you're trying to do is what they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, if we get 2 Final Four teams.
No, I'm not apologizing for 2 Final Four teams.
It's 7 in the Elite 8 or in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I won't apologize. In all SEC championship game, I'll apologize.
Okay.
I will handwrite an apology, and with they used to write with like a feather and ink. I'll find that and I'll go get it. Casey, is this some breaking news over here?
This is the new Bengals
draft
cap
hat.
for the draft, and each hat for each team has a little pin.
Yeah.
This is the Bengals. It has the ruler of the jungle as a pin in the hat.
Throne.
The
throne. Unbelievable. These hats this year absolutely rock. I love the stitching on the brims. I love the top and bottom text. I love the pins. I think they're some of the better draft hats that we've seen in a long time. I will say, man, we get screwed every single year with the orange brim.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Give me a cream hat with a black brim, please. I don't need orange on my head. Makes me mad every single year when we get an orange brim, but that is one of the better-looking hats I've seen for the draft in a long time.
When do you think we're going back to the Tiger?
I
want the Tiger.
I don't
Here's some of the other hats,
will.
by the way. Here's the Eagles. They have the
That one looks
phenomenal.
Sharp. That one looks sharp.
Phenomenal.
The Bucks have a skull.
Yeah.
Panthers. Yeah.
Love that.
That's just some of them, though.
Yeah, I think these hats are awesome. I really, really like the way they went this year with it. I like the city names on the bottom. I think those are really, really good. And I think the last couple of years they've been absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for getting it right. But man, every year I just pray that we don't get an orange brim, and we do every year.
We didn't talk about it on this show. By the way, Reed says, I hated when Jake said the SEC will dominate and the 1s and 2s will dominate other than St. John's.
Yeah, remember when I did say that?
You did.
That was fun.
I think you were right.
I was.
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate for us all. The Reds uniforms, I don't know if we ever talked about this on the show. The Reds uniforms, do you hate those or no?
More than I've ever hated anything in my life.
See, I don't think they look that bad from what I saw. They're boring, and they're bland. And they have that feel. It looks like they can, like, those are the ones that were like see-through last year.
Right.
They look cheap, but I do kind of like them. And maybe because it's been like my lack of difference of jerseys I've experienced
for sure.
over the last 25 years. So maybe that plays a
Absolutely.
part into it. I just like to see something new.
Yeah.
But I do wish the Reds. You and I disagreed on the gray thing. You like
They're my favorite
road
jerseys by
grays.
far.
I hate the Reds grays. I hate them. I would like them if it was more of like a vest or how it was. Give me a little bit of the pinstripes back when it was, and the gray and black.
Yeah.
I love that look. I wish they'd go back to it. They won't, but I wish they would because it would be really fun. Nate says the Reds have needed new jerseys for years. Yeah, I mean the Reds jerseys were terrible. I mean they've been terrible. They're going to be terrible forever.
The one thing I would say about those jerseys specifically, the ones they wore in Dayton, I don't hate them as much as everyone else that hates them.
Yeah.
I will say my gripe with them is if you're going to do new jerseys, please do new jerseys and don't put the same number font on the back.
I agree.
I have a huge gripe with the same numbers that are on all the other jerseys being on those.
I agree.
You got to just get new jerseys. It's not the end of the world for you to rebrand and get new jerseys. It's been so bad for so long.
It's like it seems like something that would benefit them greatly. Like for a team that, no disrespect, cries about money more than anybody, It feels like an upgrade in jerseys would be like, all right, the fan base is
Go
going to
walk
be all in.
around downtown yesterday. I would have loved to know the percentage of City Connect gear.
It's just
I bet
like
it's 50.
if they, Jacob, I'm telling you right now, if they brought those like gray, black,
Yes.
or pinstripe ones, it would be they'd make $1 billion.
If they
from me.
Nate Seltzer reminding us in the chat about the 2019 season. If they would play that 2019 season with the different jerseys like every weekend,
Yeah.
with this roster,
Oh yeah,
you would sell 250 million jerseys.
everything. You'd sell everything. I don't.
People
get
were
it.
buying Derek Dietrich jerseys because those jerseys were so cool.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those jerseys. When they did that, that's actually they should do that every year too.
I would love it. At least like divisional weekend series or like something, or
Yeah.
like marquee matchups. But I would love the Reds to work in more of those historic uniforms. I love the City Connects.
Yeah.
I think they're great. Friday nights were a lot of fun, and I'm a big fan of black uniforms in general. I wouldn't hate the Reds to never wear a uniform they haven't worn before. You have so many great throwbacks, and the thing about the Reds, whether we like it or not, the only reason they're relevant is the history.
100%.
We haven't done anything in 30 years.
That's fair.
The history makes them a marquee franchise. When
Yeah.
you think about baseball, the Reds are higher on that list than many, many teams that have more success than they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of the history, and it's because of the Big Red Machine and 1990 Wire to Wire and all that stuff. Go wear your throwbacks.
Yeah.
These jerseys mean nothing.
Nothing.
We haven't won anything. So wear the jerseys that you have won in, and they're awesome.
That's actually the best point. That's the best point. The fact that we continue to wear the jerseys that we continually to not win in, that's sad.
Who are the best new jerseys in the NFL? Just quickly off the top of your head, because the first two that jump off the page
love
to
the
me are the
Rams.
Oilers or alternate jerseys.
Oh,
I should
alternate
say.
jerseys.
The Oilers and the Kelly Greens.
Those
what
are
are
great.
those? They're throwbacks.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. Uniforms and logos were the best they ever were
the
in the
creamsicles.
90s and early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
We just threw up the Bengals hat. What was the first question you asked?
Oh, yeah.
When do we go back to the Leaping Tiger? We got to get more creativity with these things.
And especially in the age of like nostalgia, like every movie you see is a remake, everything. Like it does play. There's a reason they do that. There's a reason why I'm watching the 9th installment of the Scooby-Doo franchise.
Yeah.
Like that's like that. Like there's a reason Harry Potter is running it back in a TV format. Like it's just everybody wants to see the same thing over and over again with
Yeah.
different interpretations. So why not go back to the way it was 25, 35, 45 years ago, so we can all smile and have fun. Money is a good point, Everett. But all right, so here's how we're going to end it.
One last thing I want to bring
okay,
up
please.
before you wrap it
Please.
up. Desmond Watson. Desmond Watson is an interior defensive lineman for the Florida Gators.
Okay.
He is 6'6", 465 pounds.
How many pounds?
465 pounds. If he gets drafted or signed or enters an NFL game, he will be the heaviest player to ever play in an NFL game.
It has to be by a wide margin.
By a wide margin. He had 36 reps on the bench press today of 225 pounds. He jumped a 25-inch vertical and ran a 5.86 40-yard dash. Now, 25-inch vertical, that height and weight's obviously very impressive. 36 bench press reps puts him in the top 5 of any prospect so far this class. 5.86 40 sounds terrible. You hear that number, obviously jumps off the page. Oh my gosh.
How tall is he?
6'6", 465 pounds.
Okay.
In terms of kinetic energy, him running a 5.86 40-yard dash exerts the same amount of kinetic energy as a 225-pound linebacker running a 3.03 40. A 3-second, 300th of a second 40-yard dash is the equivalent in terms of energy as his 6'6", 464-pound butt running a 5.86. Unbelievable. One of the more freak athletes you'll ever see.
Can I say I want the Bengals to take him?
I do too. In terms of
What size shirt does he wear?
it can't exist.
Like it's like
Cannot exist.
It's like how like Shaquille O'Neal gets shoes. Like you have to custom make those.
He gets all the chairs taken out of his cars.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, no, it's there's no way that his clothing isn't custom made.
Oh my God.
In terms of the Bengals, I would imagine 6'6", 464 with a 5.86 40-yard dash, regardless of the kinetic energy, isn't the best pass rusher. And we did just
I
sign
want him.
2 run stoppers.
Doesn't matter. I want him.
He would be very fun.
I
He
absolutely
would be
want him.
very fun. It does seem like Casey's cooking over there for the end of the show.
I unfortunately think you guys are going to have to suffer through this. This is how we're going to end it. Casey, myself, and Jacob, thank you for watching today. We love you all. I say that as a jest, or not as in jest every show. I truly do love you all for watching every day. Thank you very much. We're going to end it like this. Many people say I jinxed the Reds yesterday. We By the way, we will have boxed lunch at about, let's say, 12. We'll call it 12:15. 12:15. We'll see you there for boxed lunch. For our members, this is how we're gonna end it. I made this song with KC. I want to say last year. I think over a year ago we made this to the news that Ian Gibaut was leaving. Now that Ian Gibaut is back, I think this
You want nothing more.
I think this video unfortunately cursed us. So this is how we'll end it. I apologize to Mouse Cop. I apologize, Mouse Cop. I apologize. That's how we'll end this show. Everybody have a great weekend. And unfortunately, I'm going to leave you with this. Casey, roll the hits.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick out my chin and grin and say, the sun will come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow. Come what may, tomorrow, I love ya, tomorrow, you're always a day away.